What's up, good people? It's your boy Jay Free coming back at you. Like I said, for those that are paying attention and are listening, that I'm coming back as often as possible. I missed the day, but it's all good. I'm still back at you. Um, Paying attention again to the stuff that's going on around us. I mean, everybody's sitting up here arguing over the flag, whether they should destroy the flag. The flag represents racism. Some people are claiming that it represents history. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna say my point, but I'm gonna tell you the only thing that I've seen that really distracted me or that really upset me was just watching CNN here just recently, a little bit ago, and I saw a brother on the screen, a black man, a young black man in college, talking about he got the Confederate flag hanging on his wall because his ancestor was a chef. And I'm, what the man, is you stupid, man? And then he talking about he got the American flag hanging too, so he represent. Man, you stupid, and I hope you hear me. You stupid. But as far as the Confederate flag go, man, look, man, people want to argue, in my opinion, over nothing. Because the reality is, man, moving the flag don't remove the hatred. It doesn't remove the system of racism. It doesn't remove the system of injustice. It doesn't alleviate the pain. It doesn't erase the actions that they've done. It doesn't eliminate the plans and the thought process. It doesn't remove the strategies that they still trying to implement. All it is removes a symbol. And whether they have the symbol or not, whether you tear it down off of the buildings or whatever you do with it, the hatred that it represents is still gonna be in the heart of the people. So in my opinion, it don't matter. Honestly, I'm like it's almost like banging. You feel me? Like, I'd rather see them with their flags so I know who's who when I see them. You make them get rid of their flags, now you got more snakes to try to weed out the basket. You know what I'm saying? So that's just my opinion on that as I'm listening to these folk talk about the flag. But I'm getting back into this thing we was talking about, the Willie Lynch letter and the making of a slave. And when I talk about this, this is some very serious and pertinent information. Pertinent information, we date it back to 1712 for one. For two, pertinent because nobody can dismiss whether they legit or not. People know about the Willie Lynch letters. Whether how in depth people know about them or whether people understand the process that they put into thinking about how they could make a slave. Whether people know that or not is another story. But people know that I didn't make this up and this is not conspiracy theory. You can't just erase this. And so what we gonna do though is begin to dig in it, because I think people was real unfamiliar. And when we begin to look at it, this right here is the direct blueprint to racism, white supremacy. And as we look at the structural system that they have in place through our psychology, and through our unconscious mind, as we begin to break that down, looking through this Willie Lynch letter and understanding how many years ago, 1712, how many years ago they began to implement these plans and the effects that it have on us right now today, and the fact that we still are yet slaves. So let's get into the information for a minute. First off, we know Willie Lynch, the term lynching was derived from his name, and it says that the speech was delivered on the bank of the James River in 1712, and he was a British slave owner in the West Indies. Now, as he comes to the people, I'm going to go brief until we get into the meat. And what he telling them is, he said, I came to greet you, in the year 1712. But what he says is, he said, I have experimented with some of the newest and oldest methods for the control of slaves. He said, ancient Rome would envy us if my program becomes implemented. He said, why do he say ancient Rome would envy us if my plan becomes implemented? Because what he's saying is, all that ancient Rome tried to accomplish by trying to conquer the world, he said, they didn't get it. They tried to conquer by power and might. He said, but I got a plan to begin to work on the psychology and the unconscious mind of the people and begin to make them slaves without even knowing that they slaves. We gonna have them sleepwalking like zombies out here. You see what I'm saying? And so he said, ancient Rome envy my program if it's implemented. He said, as our boat was sailing on the river, James River, named after the illustrious king, we know, the King James, your Bible that you love so much, the same King James who wrote the book of demonology. Yeah, you're Savior, King James. Yeah, him. As they was riding on the river, and it says that while Rome used cords of wood as crosses to stand human bodies, he say y'all using the tree and the rope to hang people. He say I caught the whiff of the dead slave hanging from the tree. He saying you losing valuable stock by hangings, and you having uprising, slaves running away, and your crops are sometimes left in the fields too long for you to make maximum profit. You suffering occasional fires. He say your animals killed, but he telling them, so he explaining to them, so they calling him because they having a problem with controlling their niggas, controlling their slaves. And so they calling him because they trying to figure out what can they do with all of these niggas in their country, because they feel threatened and fear of their life that at any point the slave gonna rise up. And so they hanging slaves trying to stick fear. And he telling them y'all losing money by hanging slaves. Y'all, not only you losing money, he say, but now they trying to fight back. They uprising. He said, you know, you losing profit. So they really put some thought into calling this man to come. And he says, but gentlemen, I'm not here to talk about your problems. You know what those are. He says, but I'm here to introduce you to a method to solve your problems, to solve the problem of the uncontrolled nigga. He said, in my bag, I got a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. He said, I guarantee every one of you that if it's installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. Now, we're going to get deeper. Please pay attention and follow, people. He said the method is simple. He said any member of your family or your overseer can use it. He said I've outlined a number of differences among the slaves. Now watch the differences. I talked about them the other night. He said watch the differences. He said I take these differences and I make them bigger though. He said, I take these differences and then I make the differences bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for my control purposes. He said, these methods have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. He said, take this simple list of differences. Now notice, this the list of differences, but he said he going to take this list of differences and use fear, distrust, and envy for control. In the list of differences, he said, we got age, he said intelligence, color or shade, size, sex, the size of the plantation. You know, in other words, what kind of job you work, what company you work for, how much money you work, you got on your job. You know what I'm saying? He said the attitude of the owner, whether the slaves live in the valley, on the hill, whether they live in the east or the west, the north, the south, whether they got fine hair, whether they got coarse hair, whether they tall, short. You see what I'm saying? So all of the differences that we still even use yet right now today, comparing each other and having beefs and gripes and complaints and not fooling with people and dealing with people because he from there or she look like this, or you know, all of this is part of the plan. He said I'm gonna use these and I'm gonna throw them in there, and he said we're gonna use these things and we're gonna mix them and we're gonna use distrust, envy, and control. Now the reason I'm talking about this is because a lot of people have heard about the Willie Lynch letter but haven't dug into the making of a slave, I don't believe, because a lot of people know about talking about, yeah, we know he talk about breaking us up by differences and different things of this nature, but watch as we dig deep and then you're going to understand the psychology behind it and why it's a direct connection to racism, white supremacy, and the structural system, how it's been implemented into us and how it affects us today without us knowing. So follow me, people, please, and pay attention. He says now, he said, don't forget, you know, pitching the old and the black and the young and the male. But this is the thing. He said you got to use the female versus the male and the male versus the female. He said you also got to have the white servants and the overseers who distrust all blacks. He said, but it's necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us, the white man. They must love and respect and trust only us, the white man. Gentlemen, these kits are your keys to control. He said you use them how your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. For if you use them intensely, for 1 year the slaves will remain perpetually distrustful. Now let's make a slave, gentlemen. Now watch and pay attention to what we're talking about. Because you have to understand that it was the interest of the slaveholders. It was their business, you know what I'm saying, to study human nature and the slave or the nature of the nature of the slave, rather, in particular. They studied us, studied our behavior, our mannerisms, because we was business and profit for them. So they needed to know the best way to deal with us and how to get the best or the most out of us. And this is where he came from, and this is what he was talking about in the beginning of the Willie Lynch letter. So it say that they were constantly looking for the first signs of a retribution or an uprising for us. So what they began was they devised a plan talking about let's make a slave. And they say, first of all, I'm reading now, we need a black nigger man. I'm reading the word nigger. First off, we need a black nigger man, a pregnant nigger woman, and her baby nigger boy. Second, we will use the same basic principle that we use in breaking a horse. Now, they calling us nigger, of course, but they saying they going to use the same basic principles that they use to break a horse to break the nigger. Pay attention and follow me, people. He says, combined, though, with some more sustaining factors. He said, what we do with horses is we break them from one form of life to another. That is, we reduce them from their natural state of nature. Yeah, you heard me correctly. He said what we do with horses is that we break them from one form of life to another. And that is that we reduce them from their natural state in nature. Whereas nature provides them with the natural capacity to take care of their offspring, we break that natural string of independence from them and thereby create a dependency status so that we may be able to get from them useful production for our business and pleasure. I can't make this up. Did you hear what I said? They say we got to break the nigger just like we break the horse. He said we got to provide, he said nature provides us with our own natural capacity to take care of ourselves because we self-dependent and sustaining. And so they say like the horse, they got to break us and create a dependency where we dependent upon them so that they can get from us useful production, business, and pleasure. Now, this was 1712. So where you think we at today in 2015? You think they threw these plans away when these four founders stole the country and when they founded the country and when they, 1776, 65 years after these plans were implemented? See, everything in front of us is always painted to be a picture to present itself as one thing when underneath the scenes it's always something else. You see what I'm saying? And so the way, wars and all different things that have transgressed through history have all been painted a picture on the lie on the surface, and we know them not to be true. Just like, for instance, the 9/11 bombings, you know what I'm saying? The Boston Massacre bombings a year ago. These things were all government, provoked, or government, follow out. The plan was completely committed by the government. You know what I'm saying? But of course, nobody believes it because we are conspiracy theory. But I can't make these words up that they put in the plan this many years ago. You understand? This is what they said for us, for business and pleasure. They said, for fear that our future generations, listen people, for fear that our future generations may not understand the principles of breaking both of the beasts together, the nigger and the horse. We understand that short-range planning economics results in periodic economic chaos. So in order for us to avoid turmoil in the economy, it requires us to have breadth and depth in long-range comprehensive planning. So they said what they're talking about is their money. An economic system, what we talk about, racism, white supremacy, being a system that is put into play. And they talking about it. And they saying for longevity, for the long haul. That's what the words mean, when they talk about breadth and depth and long range comprehensive planning. You understand these different things. This is what they saying. We got to really dig into this thing, and we got to be planning something because we dealing with the human mind. And they understand it's not the beast. It's similar, but it's not. So, but they put in a plan, y'all, and this is written. They said we have to articulate both skill, sharp perception. We lay down the following principles for long-range, comprehensive economic planning. Both horse and niggers are no good to the economy in the wild or natural state. Wow, this is what they said. Both must be broken and tied together for orderly production. For orderly future, special and particular attention must be paid to the female and the youngest offspring. Both must be crossbred to produce a variety and division of labor. Both must be taught to respond to a peculiar new language. Psychological and physical instruction of containment must be created for both. These are their words. This is what they saying. These are the plans that they putting in together for us. We must be broken and tied like the horse. for orderly production. But notice they talking about focusing on the female and the youngest. So talking about that to produce the variety and division of labor, that they both must be taught to a peculiar new language, psychological and physical instruction of containment. I'm telling you, it's psychological warfare, people. You understand what I'm saying? It says, see, because this is their fear. It says, accordingly, both a wild horse and a wild or natural nigger is dangerous, even if captured, for they will have the tendency to seek their customary freedom, and in doing so might kill you in your sleep. You cannot rest. They sleep while you are awake, and are awake while you are asleep. They are dangerous near the family house, and it requires too much labor to watch them away from the house. Above all, you cannot get them to work in this natural state. You can't get them to work in a natural state of freedom in their mind, so you got to trick them. It can't work. See, it says, so hence both the horse and the nigger must be broken. That is, breaking them from one form of mental life to another. Keep the body, take the mind. In other words, break the will to resist. Now, the breaking process is the same for both the horse and the nigger, just slightly varying in degrees. But as we said before, there is an art in long-range economic planning. You must keep your eye and thoughts on the female and the offspring of the horse and the nigger. They steady talking about this is for long-term economic planning, people. They steady saying this thing is for, we intend to enforce this and keep this going for a long time. This is not something we doing for a short while. You understand what I'm saying? He say for long term. That's why this is a teaching. This is like science to them. Just like you would go to school to be a doctor or a lawyer. In 1712, black slaves was their number one profit maker. Look, they done built the whole country and controlled the entire planet off of our sweat, back, and tears. You understand what I'm saying? And we walk around as zombies blind, not understand any of these things that are going on, why they continuing to happen. And we want to argue about whether they should take down a flag or not. And we talking about over 400 years ago or whatever, and longer, they completely went to wipe out us from history, completely lied to us and told us a completely new history. We've convinced ourselves and believed the lie. Walk around, will kill and fight each other over looking at me wrong or stepping on my J's or looking at my girl. But we'll not do anything to those that perpetuate violence toward us, whose whole purpose, aim, and mission is to completely annihilate and wipe us off the earth. Come on, people. Wake up. I can't invent this stuff. I meant to go deeper, but I just try to keep the video short. We're going to dig back deeper where I left off tomorrow. We're going to hit it back harder and get back in it. Remember what I said. I gave enough meat today. I didn't invent these words. You understand what I'm saying? I didn't make this up when they talking about long-term economic success. Breaking the nigga the same way you got to break the horse. You know, to break us down and change us. They say they have to completely reverse us from our free mind state to where we can be contained and be used for their profit. Where you think we at today? Why you think all this is going on around us and niggas steady talking about I got to get my paper? Niggas steady planning vacations and trips and shit. Niggas steady living life day to day like everything is regular and normal, while brethren is dying on the regular, and while they pose a constant threat daily and they show it to us and they ain't even hiding behind it no more. Niggas talking about getting ready for war. If you ain't woke up, bro, we been in war. They killing us daily. We just ain't fighting back. The problem is it don't look like war because it's easy to win when your enemy don't resist. We have to wake up and come to understanding of the truths of the things that are going on. You understand what I'm saying? And wake up as a people. But at the same time, I do see a conscious awakening in our people. I do see a shift that is happening in the positive. So I'm just contributing and throwing my little rock in the ripple and hope to spread enough information and knowledge to share with people that, you know what I'm saying, we being lost and we being blind. And this was all devised by a plan. Racism, white supremacy is not conspiracy theory. This is not made up. This is not some people invented. All of the things that we talk about is not invented, it's not created, it's not made up, it's real. So, like I say, we gonna hit you with this stuff every day as possible, as often as we can. It's your boy Jay Free, man. I love y'all, man. I'm just trying to spread peace, love, and truth once. Love y'all. Peace.